Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's going.
Not too bad.
Yeah, technical gremlins, I guess, but you know, we're off to the races.
Yes, we are. Friends, today we have Gregory Phillips of the Social Occupation Libertarian Party. He's going to share some interesting ideas with us and talk about his party. So let's get started. You kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch, where you live.
I live in Indiana, and in 2011 into 2012, I did my election. Besides voting, which was when my town and my area of my town was having a lot of blackouts. I learned that you can prevent the sort of blackouts that we were having by burying the power lines. So I began during one of the blackouts. Actually, I got my power inverter going. I got my printer hooked up to my power inverter, my netbook in my car, and I drove around town and handed out, basically a petition for us to try to bury the power lines. And it was semi-successful. We were able to convince NIPSCO to at least cut down all the branches anywhere in the area around any power lines, but it stopped the power outages. So I'm pretty proud of that. In 2012, right around the time of the campaign for president, the 47% comment really just. I am on the dole, for lack of a better word. I receive Social Security disability and Social Supplemental Security income for a disability. And so the idea that the Republican Party and the person in charge of it at that time would not even consider me to be a viable vote, they just completely to their corner and everything else like that. Sense by that, and I didn't think the Democrats were really handling it well, so I wrote the founding document for the Social Occupation Libertarian Party, and the rest is history. Basically, it's me trying to, because we are a majority independent voting country. We have about 40% independents, about 30% Democrats, about 35% Republicans. I was trying to get these voices that I had, these voices in the political, were not being represented, some sort of representation, your Bernie Sanders and a little bit of Rand Paul and Ron Paul and stuff like that. So the name of the party is the Social Occupation Libertarian Party. Socials and socialists. Occupation as in, although we believe in the things that the Occupy Wall Street movement supposedly uphold, the things that they believed in, they were not successful. You can't occupy a park and then call it, active, changing the system. Libertarians, because libertarians usually vote Republican, but there are a lot of social libertarians in the Democratic caucus. So that's I'm trying to make a coalition of the sort of Democratic socialists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, and people that believed in the Occupy Wall Street movement, which I'd say the solid 40-50% of people in the country that believe that businesses shouldn't be throwing their fellow out in the streets just to make another 2% profit quarter over quarter. And then the libertarians, which I say most people are socially libertarian. There are evangelical. Most people don't care what another person is doing, as I say in the founding document, with their genitalia on the weekends, unless they're hurting somebody. So that was it.
So is it fair to say your party is a synthesis between libertarian ideology and leftist ideology?
Socialist, what kind of ideology?
Socialist leftist.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot in common. I think the way the political spectrum is a straight line where libertarians are on the right and socialists are on the left. I don't think that. I think it's a circle. I think if you go far enough to the left, you get people like the Socialist Rifle Association and the DSA, and if you go far enough to the right, you get a lot of the libertarians and a lot of the people that want the government out of their business. But I think that there's a lot of things that the far left and the far right have in common, and if they could work together, then we could maybe have a legitimate. I'll be honest with you, I don't believe in truth in a system where it's a bicameral system, where we only have two viable parties. I think that we should reinvigorate this party and one of the two major parties to kind of become this new party, if that makes any sense. Kind of like the Tea Party. I wouldn't consider the Tea Party to be a third party because they all vote Republican. And I wouldn't believe that the Democratic Socialist of America is a true third party because they all vote, Democrat. So, this is an effort to try to change, what's already in the make.
So do you see yourself as a caucus that wants to enter those two parties, or how do you see your role in changing this two-party system?
Well, in my opinion, caucusing with the Democrats, caucusing with the Republicans, I think that the more you talk with somebody, the more you can reach some sort of understanding. So, as far as I would have a caucus in Congress, with maybe 15, 20 members or something like that, I think that we would caucus with both parties. Because you have your Kristen Sinemas and your Joe Manchins who are supposedly Democrats, but they have a lot of beliefs that go align with the right, and then you have your people like Bernie Sanders who, he still believes in social libertarianism and stuff like that, in my opinion, at least. So caucusing with the Republicans and caucusing with the Democrats seems like, I think the more you work together with, people that you disagree with, the more likely you are to try to get something through Congress. It kind of, I'll be honest with you, in my opinion, Congress hasn't accomplished much of anything in the last 10 years. I mean, we call I think a year the Do Nothing Congress was, whichever president was talking about the Do Nothing Congress. But if you actually look at how many bills the Do Nothing Congress got passed, we're at like half of that, if not less. And it seems like every year or over year, the Congress is less and less successful. I think we should probably, try to redo. I'm not a strict constitutionalist. I think that it's a document that was made to be retrofit. It was made to be retrofit year over year, and before it was even passed, it was amended 10 times. I think we need to put some of the FDR second New Deal things into writing in our Constitution. I think the chance we have of staying the United States of America and not something worse.
When you say second New Deal, what specific programs and policies are you thinking of putting in the Constitution?
There's a video that was in the, what was it called? Socialism: A Love Story. Oh no, story by Michael Moore, and he actually shows the video that was never actually put on TV or anything else, but it was recorded by FDR shortly before he died. He wanted us to have everybody to have a right to a home, everybody to have a right to a well-paying job, everybody to have a right to healthcare, and those are the three major things. I think he had about 6 amendments in his second New Deal, and I would add to that everybody should have a right to transportation, and that we should all have a right to vote, without restriction. I think those very brief things, most people would agree, are something that everybody should have, but it's just a matter of in the founding document of the country to try to make sure it still is represented as well as it can be, at least.
Getting back to what you were talking about earlier, it caught my attention when you said when the power went out, you hooked up, if I heard you right, you hook up your vehicle to a power converter kit, and then you printed out the documents of your party. Can you explain how that works?
Oh, well, that they have for long road trips called a power inverter. I hooked up a little tiny HP printer to the power inverter in my car. That time it was probably a Nissan Quest minivan. And so I hooked up the power inverter to the cigarette lighter in the car and actually ran copies of the petition that I was passing around in the car. Like while my mom was driving the car, I was printing these out, and we were heading around the neighborhood to try to hand them out. And I was knocking on doors. I was tired of the power going out. It was interrupting. I was working from home, and it was interrupting everything. And it was about the third time in a couple of weeks. So I printed out a very short, sweet, to the point, petition, and handed it to at least it was probably 3 dozen of my neighbors on one of those really hot days in the middle of the summer. But it was the only thing I could think to do. I'm not one to sit on the sidelines if I think I can help. So I felt like that was the best thing I could do, and it seems to have been somewhat successful. They did eventually cut down all the branches in the neighborhood that would have caused the power outages when the wind. So somewhat successful.
So the power outages have decreased then?
Well, they've basically completely stopped. I've moved out of that neighborhood, but even for years I was still in the neighborhood before I moved out, there were no more power outages. There were no more, Indiana is a very temperate state, so we get a lot of wind and we get a lot of storms. And the wind would just blow, and every time a branch would hit one of the power lines, because it was very, very wooded, it would just knock the power out. And it would happen so often that we literally had people buying $2,000 or $3,000 generators and running power lines across the street. Across the street neighbors would have the power outage, and then we would have power outage. It was really, really nasty stuff. But NIPSCO, I believe, is the company that provides power for the area. Sort of fix the problem. They didn't bury the power lines, which is what I would have wanted, but they did, do what they could cost effectively to try to prevent the issue from continuing.
So when you printed them out from that printer, did you have your cell phone and you sent it to the printer by Wi-Fi? I'm interested how you did this technologically.
I think I had a netbook. I had a little Toshiba NB505OR netbook, little $250 netbook that I'd been using for a few years. I hooked up my laptop to the printer, and I just printed out this little orange and red and white that was back before I had actually found it at the party. I wanted to be in the party colors, and it was a little, direct sort of petition thing. And I had folded it around so I could put it over people's handles if they weren't home. And if they were home, I literally just, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I live right around this corner there, and this is something I'd like to do. Are you tired of outages in this neighborhood?" Everybody to a person said yes, and they either called NIPSCO or gave me their information so that I could go and talk to them about burying the power lines. So
So is a new area better? Are there any problems that you're addressing there, or do you feel this new area is fine the way it is?
I live in the new area, and it's different. I've moved from, a more suburban area to a more urban area, and so we have public transportation, which is great. But it's just it's different. So I don't like it any worse or better. I really did like the area I was in, but I had to move for work and stuff like that. So I actually I actually enjoy living in a red state. Is kind of weird for a person that's on the left side of the diagram, the blue side of the diagram. I like living in a red state because there's a lot of things that you can do, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the political activism side of things. So I don't believe in gerrymandering in terms of only Democrats in this area and only Republicans in this area. That what's his name? The last Barack Obama's Attorney General. I think his name is Elijah. Do you know his name? What was his name?
Yeah, I can't.
Barack Obama's. Say again?
I can't recall, unfortunately.
Working on trying to reverse gerrymandering, and he's working with the Democratic National Committee to try to reverse gerrymandering. And I think that's probably the best chance we have of having an actual representative democracy for the foreseeable future. I mean, there were more people in 2012. Sorry. More people in 2016 and 2018, and that voted for Democrats in Congress, but we got fewer seats. So I don't think we have a fully functioning democracy at this point, if for no other reason than your vote doesn't count unless you live in a district that represents your particular party. So I'm hoping to fix that before it comes to a head, as it did on January 6th, which I think that was just a symptom of a democracy that doesn't seem to be representative, whether it's on the left or the right. I think people, when you don't feel like you're being listened to, sometimes you just stop talking, and sometimes you do things that are just not right, and in a reaction to that. So I think January 6th was just a symptom of a much bigger problem, and I feel like the Tea Party was a wave, the Barack Obama 2008 election was a wave, the Tea Party was a wave, the Occupy Wall Street movement was a wave. It keeps going back and forth like a pendulum, getting bigger and bigger. I'm hoping that the country can thrive and survive the next wave. To be getting worse and worse, but I think talking is the only solution we have, and passing laws to try to protect people's rights. So that's what. comes in a little bit.
So
Protect
how
people's
do you
freedoms.
recommend, I'm sorry,
Go,
so how do
no,
you
go ahead.
recommend we change the redistricting? How would we redistrict in a way that would be representative and fair?
I think that geometric shapes of districts is the best way, but we've kind of gotten caught in the middle of the fence, kind of doing both things. Some liberal areas are gerrymandering so that you have blue voters in blue areas, and some Republican areas doing the same thing. And so I feel like we should either just do geometric shapes so we don't have people picking their voters, or maybe we should just, and this is just me playing devil's advocate, maybe we should just go all the way with gerrymandering. Maybe we should just, have completely separate, separate but equal, I guess, districts sort of thing. That was a satirical sort of thing that I had in mind. What if they really want to gerrymander, if they really want, this country to have only Republicans in certain areas and only Democrats in other certain areas, then do we really need to remain a country as one? It's a very radical thought, but if we're not able to have a functioning government, I mean, the sequester was a good example. The sequester was basically the right and the left getting together and saying, okay, look, we're gonna chain. We're gonna put a gun to our head, a metaphorical gun to our head, if we can't pass a budget. And then they weren't able to pass a budget, so the sequester wound up happening, and they lost a lot of the earmarks and stuff like that were going to their districts. I feel like if you had 435 or 535, whichever it is, number of people, I don't get them to agree that the sun rose this morning. In terms of just having the Senate 100 and the 435 congressmen, where the sun rose this morning. But you kind of have to in order to get anything done. So, maybe there's some other way that we can do this. It's, I don't have much faith in the government to function when it's literally not able to pass a budget and not able to, even fix the Voting Rights Act, which I felt like that was a big bad sign of the future, that the Supreme Court broke down the Voting Rights. And we see how the partisans have really, worked that to their advantage, to the detriment of, I think, society. So,
So where can people see your platform of your party?
They can go to the free BitLink. Bitly is a link shortening company. The free BIT, that's Bravo, Indiana, Texas, dot Limo, yellow, that's very important. So it's bit.ly/SOLPARTY 12. 12 is in the year 2012. That was what I found in it. It's got a bunch of stuff in there, but I was trying to do some sort of advertisement to show the party off, but it's still got the founding document and a couple other documents in there. One sole strategy, which I think maybe as a political activist we should probably be talking about doing a debt strike, because one of the other things that really bothers me about the way our economy works, and we may have I forget whether or not we've been able to talk about it this time, but the fact that 160 or 180 or so million people only have about 2% of America's wealth. Literally less than, or somewhere around 2% of America's wealth in the hands of the bottom 60% of the country, financially speaking. That's just it's actually worse than the ages when serfs serving plutocrats, because at least the plutocrats didn't have running water, and we were all kind of in it together. They needed us for protection and so on and so forth. The way that our economy has not been serving the bottom 60% of people over the last, I'd say, 50, 60 years since Reaganomics, is just atrocious. There are more people in prison right now than there were ever African American slaves in the South, and there are more people who can't afford $100 doctor's bill than ever before, and it's not it's just not fair. In the sense of fairness, I think that we should redistribute the wealth. I don't even apologize for thinking that. I think that we should redistribute the wealth. If you have $184 billion, then you should be taxed on that wealth, even if it was just Elizabeth 2% tax, just 2 cents on every dollar. That redistribution could, that could basically feed the hungry and also, perhaps the naked, and take care of the least of us. So, I always find it interesting when people on the conservative spectrum, say they don't want to redistribute the wealth, yet they have to the more powerful people among us. The whole Reaganomics idea was we need to have trickle down economics. We need to have people at the top get more money so that they can give it to us at the bottom. And that's redistributing wealth. That's class warfare. That's might not be violent class warfare, but that's the sort of thing that I think when you really break it down, people on the right and the left, and I've noticed this just with talking to people, everybody believes in fairness, but it depends on what's actually being done about it. So I'm hoping that I'll be honest with you, I love AOC. I love her. I think she's one of the most verbose people on the left that's able to enumerate the problems that we really have with our lack of a functioning for the middle class and the lower class. And I hope that she'll be president one day, but I don't expect it, because we don't live in a country that is okay. That was why I named the country the party social, not socialist. In the founding document, I mentioned some of the things that I consider to be socialism, which is our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our highways, and levees that don't fail. That's all socialism, in my opinion. And we are, in that way, a socialist country, the same way the Army has universal health care for Army families and everything else like that. But that, and not combine the word socialist with the things that are actual signs of socialism. I believe in the police and fighters, and I believe that those are the sort of arguments that you need to make when you're convincing people of becoming a more socialist nation or whatever else like that. So
So you said that was available at bit.ly/EDSL Perry. I'm sorry, Phillips.
Sorry, no. Soul Party 12. SOLPARTY 12. bit.ly/SOLPARTY 12.
Okay. So how else can people support your organization, your party?
Tom Hartman says democracy is not a spectator sport. Tag, you're it. It's most people think that they can help posting on Twitter or posting on Facebook, but if you're not calling your congressman about passing the John Lewis Act and passing the voting upgrade, and also the 3.5 trillion over 10-year infrastructure bill, and the even the budget that they just passed, that was what, 1.5 trillion, I guess. All four of those things, just call your congressman. You can, I don't have the number memorized, but if you just Google call my zip code, they really don't get a lot of calls, except when there's something important that people are really feeling bad about. But it's just do whatever you can. Like I work, and I also, I work as much as I can to try to better my own life, but it's not easy. So, I'm not the sort of person that is paid for, but I'm not a professional lobbyist, basically. I don't get paid to advocate like a lot of the people that are on TV, talking head sort of thing. So, just do whatever you can in your district to try to get, laws passed that really represent you and what you feel is right. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act, the second update to the law that was part by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the 1.5 trillion and also the 3.5 trillion, the reconciliation bill was the actual bipartisan infrastructure bill. All four of those things are the most important things in the country right now to worry about. January 6th worry about, but that was a symptom, not the problem. So just call your congressman and get out there and vote.
That sounds like a good suggestion. So we thank you for coming on the program today and sharing your views and talking about the social Occupation Libertarian Party.
Thanks for having me.
Have yourself a great day and all the best to you and your party.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.